I don't know. Do you take a shower after a TV appearance like that? How do you look yourself in the mirror? How do you look your family in the mirror? When you know one day after on tape the president has confessed that he didn't take it seriously, you're coming out and praising his leadership. I honestly, just as a person, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it.
It's very difficult to watch. It's also very difficult to read the writings of some people that I've respected for most of my life who actually are apologizing for Donald Trump committing one of the most egregious acts any American president has ever committed. No Wall Street Journal editorial page, which, by the way, it was the worst example of anti-Trumpism, trying to actually bring up Nancy Pelosi quotes from February and Cuomo quotes as if that has anything to do with the president of the United States lying to the American people for months.
Yeah.
And lying to them about everything from this infection, the rate of the infection going away magically, no need to worry about it, no need to wear masks. Look at his rally last night. That is the consequence of 6 months of lying. It was another super spreader event with people packed in closely together.
Hurt by the president.
Yeah, and so you know the hostility towards doctors, the hostility towards medical advice. Again, we have been saying, Mika, for years, if this guy were a CEO,
be gone.
If he were the preacher of a church, if he were a high school football coach, if he were a middle school janitor, he would be fired.
Yeah.
Would have been fired long ago. But if he were a doctor, lying willfully to 320 million people in the middle of the worst pandemic in a century in this country, and doing it in such a way that would prolong the agony, increase the number of people killed, increase the levels of unemployment, he would have his medical license stripped and he would be sued into bankruptcy.
Yeah.
But wait, he's president of the United States, so we define deviancy down that way. There's no getting around this. And for the jackasses who are out there trying to forgive this guy for killing, I mean, okay, Wall Street Journal editorial page, he's not responsible for the deaths of 190,000 Americans. No. I mean, there are studies out that suggest that maybe he is responsible for the deaths of, 100,000 maybe? What would you say he's responsible for, Wall Street Journal editorial page? 120,000? Maybe he just killed 120,000 people with his lies? Maybe he killed 100,000? Only 80,000? Do you think he only killed 80,000 senior citizens? 80,000 Americans with his lies, Wall Street Journal editorial page? No? Is that too much for you? How about 60,000? How many? Do you think maybe he killed 30,000 people, Wall Street Journal editorial page with his lies? What do you think history's going to say? Because they sure as hell are not going to say what you said in your op-ed this morning. What if maybe he only killed 4,000 out of 109? Maybe you think that's probably pretty safe to say that him lying about this pandemic, him lying about this virus, him underplaying the risk so much so that people would run into stores at Walmart and tear down displays that had masks on it, that people would run around saying this was a hoax a month. He would. He called it a Democratic hoax a month after he told Woodward it was really bad stuff and dangerous. What do you think, Wall Street Journal editorial page? Maybe 4,000 out of 190,000 people were killed because Donald Trump's lies. Do you think only 4,000? Maybe, I don't know. As many Americans who died on 9/11? Is that fair to say? You know what? I think history is going to find out it was a hell of a lot more than 4,000 Americans who were killed because Donald Trump's lies. And I've been reading you, Wall Street Journal editorial page, my entire adult life. In fact, you gave me the crib notes basically when I was running for Congress in 1994. I'd read your page, and I'd go out and campaign. I didn't listen to what the NRCC sent me because I found that you always wrote it better and more concisely and gave me a better argument for what conservatism was in 1994, but it sure as hell is not right now. But I'd be careful, and I say this as a long-time listener, first-time caller. I'd be really careful because history in a couple of months is going to be harsh. Remember when I started criticizing George W. Bush? And conservatives said, why are you a traitor? Why are you a liberal? You're a liberal, Joe. When did you become? How could you be criticizing George W. Bush? And then you know what he did? You know what happened? He left office. And you know what happened when he left office? All these conservatives started criticizing George W. Bush. Now, I got to say, Wall Street Journal editorial page, you did criticize George W. Bush, along with me, early for his massive spending. Good on you. You don't have that gene in you anymore. I'm not sure where it went. And you can't just say, yeah, we criticized Donald Trump too, but come on. Nancy Pelosi went to Chinatown in February. Nancy Pelosi's not president of the United States. Nancy Pelosi's team didn't know on New Year's Eve of 2020 what was coming from China. Nancy Pelosi's employees didn't know and start preparing on January 1st, 2020, about the pandemic to warn the administration. Nancy Pelosi sure wasn't warned on January 28th that this was the biggest crisis to face Donald Trump in his presidency. No, she wasn't. But you know who was? Donald Trump. And I'm not really sure what's in it for you continuing to apologize for this guy. But whether we're talking about him denigrating the war dead, whether we're, you know, we did it, by the way. Now, maybe people out in the personality cult, like maybe those people really think that those quotes were just made, but you know they're not made up. You know he denigrated the war dead, Wall Street Journal editorial page. You know he did. You know he did. You know he called men and women who dedicated their entire lives and spent months and years away from their children in defense of this country. You know he called them suckers and things that I can't repeat on this show. But you'll defend him. You'll keep defending him. Where's Marco Rubio, by the way? Marco Rubio on vacation? Where's Ted Cruz? I haven't heard from them. Do they agree with Donald Trump? I don't. Where's Cory Gardner? Does Cory Gardner agree with Donald Trump that men and women who've dedicated their entire lives to this country, who run the United States military, are suckers, and another word that can't be repeated on this show? Are they proud of Donald Trump for lying to the people of Colorado, for lying to the people of Florida, for lying to the people of Texas, for lying to the people of the United States of America? Martha McSally, are you proud that Donald Trump lied to the people of Arizona for the past 6-7 months? You think that's cool? You think that's Churchillian? Where are they? I've heard nothing from them. Maybe I missed it. Maybe, and if I missed it, I apologize. But Mika, what do they think January is going to look like? It is going to be a cold, long winter, and they're going to be spending the rest of their lives explaining why they remain silent in a time of moral crisis.
Yeah.
When they found out that their president lied to the American people for 6 months in the greatest crisis since 9/11. I don't get it.
The same
I'm just a simple country lawyer,
message
but I don't
apply.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.